Hey everyone, welcome to episode 45 of PixlFeed Radio, and I'm here with my friend or Dr. Bruno Cignacco. How you doing, Bruno? How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for your invite. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to have you here. For those of you that don't know, Bruno is the author of a book called The Art of Compassionate Business. And I really like this topic because back in the day, and I say back in the day, like Steve Jobs was famous for being relentless with his employees and just being an asshole, right? And then for some reason, people took that as, because he was successful, that everybody should be mean to their employees and treat them like shit, essentially. I never really quite agree with that. There's a difference between pushing your team and then just being not compassionate at all. And what caught me was your TEDx talk that you did, explaining, how people need to be, companies need to be more compassionate, right? So why don't we talk a little bit about that? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book, and then we'll take it from there.
Good question. Thank you very much. Yes, this book is the result of 3-year process of research that I conducted, and I was a bit intrigued because I wanted to know if companies could be both compassionate and profitable. According to my research, and according also to some consultancy activities that I deliver to companies, I observed that company can focus on what we call the triple bottom line. Companies can focus on profit, which is very important. Companies can focus on people, caring for people. This means being supportive, being flexible when people have some needs, but also developing win-win agreements. And people, we're talking about customers, suppliers, employees, community members, business partners. And also companies can be caring with the environment. This means being environmentally friendly, supporting the planet. So this triple bottom line is much wider approach as compared with the limited approach of only pursuing profits. And I saw many companies, as you said, many entrepreneurs, many business leaders have been presented as models of what is not being compassionate. How many times you have seen companies that are firing employees mercilessly, or companies that are manipulating customer, deceiving customer, or polluting the environment? These are examples of companies that are not supporting, not loving, not compassionate. So there is a different way to do business, which implies focusing on not only what can be counted, what can be measured, such as market share or profit, but also looking for other aspects that are so important. I call qualitative aspects: companionship, camaraderie, support, loyalty, commitment. You cannot measure these values, you cannot measure these principles, and they're so important to build a profitable business, but also a human-oriented business. And I call human-oriented business because business is about relationship. You can never succeed without relationship. Company cannot succeed by themselves. And many companies focus so much on these indicators such as profitability, productivity, that they forget that without the support from customer, without the support from employees, without the support from community members, companies can never succeed. And this is very important. And there are many examples of companies that are compassionate and they're very profitable. In the media, in sensationalistic media, you see only the bad examples. But there are many companies like Patagonia or Whole Foods or UPS that are example of compassionate companies, and they're very profitable companies.
That's okay. I love that whole explanation. And the reason why I want to talk to you, you're in the UK, I'm in the US, obviously. Like, I don't know how it is in the UK, but here in the US, there's a very, very toxic culture about how we're supposed to be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And, we're having the problem now where all these kids, I want to say starting with my generation, old millennials, I'm a quote unquote old millennial. We were all told to go to college and get a job and all that stuff. But salaries are the same. So they expect you to work for pennies on the dollar. An entry-level position, they're asking for somebody to have 5 years of experience. So these poor kids can't get jobs anywhere. And let's face it, not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and that's okay. Some people are wired to have a job and make X amount a year, and they're super happy. And all they want to do is go to work, be in a great environment, a fun environment while getting things done, and being able to have access to like holidays and vacations and not have like not be looked down upon. Like here in the States, if you take a vacation, they make you feel guilty about it. It's like they give you a guilt trip. Like you're supposed to work 24/7 and you're supposed to connect it to your email 24/7. Like there's some like, I don't mind doing that because I love what I do, but it's my business. I don't expect the people that work for me to answer me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, and if they want to go on vacation, go for it, man. I want you to go on vacation. Like I don't have a limit on vacations because I know my guys and my people get the stuff that I need done every time. Like I don't have to, treat them badly. But the companies here, they only give you like, if they give you vacation, it's like a week. And then the max is like 2 weeks. In Europe, you get like 6 weeks and you can go on vacation. Nobody cares. They don't make you feel guilty about it, And I think that's one of the main things. I think when people go on vacation, they can recharge their batteries and come back. And you need those breaks, right? And that's part of being compassionate, right?
Yes, of course, you're right. Because you know what? Many companies treat employees as a cog in a machinery. So they treat as a means to an end. So the employees are instrument to achieve goals. Instead of treating employees as human beings, as you said, employees need to have a rest, to take holidays, to have also to deal with personal issues, to have time for their family. They shouldn't be overworking the whole time, and also should have some flexibility when they need to work in a flexible way. Also, they need in some cases, to take some time off because of personal issues. And many companies are not compassionate at all. But also many companies, moreover, push employees to the extent that employees get burnout, and employees then they cannot go to work or they are ill, and this increases the cost of for this employer, increases the cost of health services and so on. There is a very interesting research study that observed that work environments that are compassionate, that are loving, tend to bring about higher employee satisfaction, higher customer satisfaction, lower employee turnover, lower employee absenteeism, and lower stress levels. All these indicators impact positively on the bottom line, which means profit. This means that, to put it simply, to be compassionate bring about profit in an indirect way. So this means that instead, when you focus on exploiting employees, not only the employees won't go the extra mile, won't give their best, but at the same time, employees might get tired, might get stressed, might look for other job opportunities. In some cases, they might work by the book. You cannot force employees to cooperate. They should cooperate willingly. Instead, when you push employees to the extreme, these employees not only get resentful, they feel unrecognized, and in some cases, they look for other job opportunities as soon as possible. For the reason, many companies have a very important turnover rate because employees leave the company very, very easily. So we have to understand that compassion is connected to business. It's not only to be nice to people, but also when you treat people in a nice way, according to the law of reciprocity, people tend to give you the same treatment. They tend to cooperate. When you treat them well, in a respectful, considerate way, they tend to cooperate. Instead, when you treat them like I don't want to say any four-letter
like
word.
Shit. I'll say it like shit.
When you treat them in a bad way, in a non-compassionate way, what happens? These employees tend to withdraw. They tend not to cooperate. And if they cooperate, they work by the book, the minimum possible. So we have to understand that people tend to be cooperative when they feel at ease, when they have what especially called psychological safety, when they don't feel threatened, when they don't feel stressed. Because according to research, the stress level also tend to impair the discerning skills. People cannot think clearly when they're stressed. People cannot get creative. That is so important for business when they get stressed. So you are so right. Employees deserve to be treated in the best way because they're one of the most important resources that the company count on, and they're resources that create new resources. Employees are the one creating new products, creating new services, serving customers. So they're so important, and some companies treat them as instruments to be use, and in some cases abuse.
Yeah, I love what you're saying because I remember, growing up when I had jobs and all that, and I didn't work for myself. Like, I had bosses that were horrible, and they thought because they were, because they just told you what to do, and they had no, I don't, what's the word I'm looking for? Because they were aggressive, that you would get more done, and that was not the case. Everybody would just complain, and they will hate coming into work, and then they didn't want to do. Why would I want to do anything for you if you treat me badly? You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it.
I agree. But also, let's think about this from the psychological perspective. There is a famous author that probably your listener know, that is Daniel Goleman. This is the author of the famous book Emotional Intelligence. He observed that according to research, when people have a negative attitude, for example, when people experience negative emotions, these emotions tend to infect others around. So supposing that you have your boss or your manager that is in a bad mood and is angry and is forceful, pushy, well, this negative emotion tend to infect all the workplace, all employees, and employees tend to, obviously, with this negative emotion, their thinking skills, their learning skills, their creative skills tend to be much more clouded. The opposite happens. All emotions are contagious. So when a boss or a manager or CEO is in a good mood, is compassionate, is loving, is supportive, is flexible, is considerate, this boss tend to infect others with this positive emotion, and others tend to behave in a similar way, uh, much more caring for one another, much more cooperative, much more creative. So emotions are so important, and in many cases are left aside. The most common emotion in the workplaces is fear. People feel fear of being fired. People feel fear of making mistakes. In some cases, they cannot afford themselves to be creative. Why? Because if they are creative and they make mistakes, well, they will be punished. But also fear of, for example, losing their job, or, for example, not getting recognition. Fear is connected to a mode that we call freeze, fight, flight mode. And when you have adopt this mode that is obviously very negative, your thinking skills are reduced, your discernment is impaired, and you cannot work effectively. You cannot achieve your goals effectively because your thinking is delayed, is impaired. So the opposite to fear will be compassionate. In this case, why? Because when you are compassionate to others, they tend to behave in a similar way. When you treat others in a considerate way, they will tend to give their best. They will try to make an extra effort to contribute to your company. But many companies act, I would say, in an opposite way. They only focus on pushing, and obviously the result in many cases are not good, because employees leave the company, or the employees are stressed, and this won't affect positively the work environment and the business goals.
So let me ask you something. I know you consult with a lot of businesses. So when they hire you and you come in and you come to evaluate the workplace, what is it that you're looking for, and what is the process like?
I'm looking for obvious things. So, for example, if I visit a company, I can see uh, how the work environment feels. So, how for example, people treat with each other, or if the people cooperate or try to compete with one another. You have some work environments that are very competitive. How can you have teamwork in an environment that is competitive? And most of the relevant projects, for example, technological project or creative project, need teamwork. So, and you see a lot of what I observe also when I consult with companies, is that I see the dark, what we call the dark side of politics. Is there any upmanship? Is there any turf wars? Is there any gossiping? Are people taking the merit of others? So are people like trying to, is for example, criticize other behind their backs? Well, this is negative. This creates a very nasty work environment, very nasty workplace, which bring about negative emotion and create a vicious circle that reduce productivity, make people more stressed. People also, when they're stressed, tend to treat customer in a negative way. Why? Because they are frustrated and they try to transfer this negative emotion to other, for example, customer are dissatisfied and also tend not to come back to this company. It's all a negative cycle. Everything changed when, for example, most people in the work environment adopt a positive attitude, especially the one on the top. That should be the example. The manager, the leaders, the boss, the CEO or CFO, that should be leading with example. But it's very common having toxic workplaces where people feel disgusted, the people feel annoyed, upset, and they cannot bring about effectiveness, productivity, efficiency, because they are obviously always under threat. When you are under threat, fearful, threatened, well, you cannot give your best. You look for survival. You try to uh, guard yourself from the threat. In this case, will be the workplace or the boss or the manager.
Right. So if you go into a company and you see that type of environment, how do you start fixing it? What is it?
Yeah,
What's the process like?
We train companies. For example, we deliver some training that could be compassionate workplaces, and we these are short trainings. Could be 1 day, could be 1 hour. Compassionate workplace, or could be compassionate customer service. And we explain, for example, some principles that I mentioned here: the principle of reciprocity, the what we call emotional contagion. The emotions are infectious. You can infect other with your emotion. We show research also that validating these findings, so that this appear that is not out of the blue. Also, we show examples of companies that are compassionate, and we show that there is a connection between key performance indicator, profitability, productivity, efficiency, and good relationship in the workplace. Because we start with the opposite thesis. We start that many companies, the one, for example, that we deliver consultancy services, try to focus so much on profitability, productivity, efficiency, and these are indicators that are correct. Many companies should pursue them, but many companies tend to pursue this indicator only as the sole purpose for their business. We explain to these people when we're training them that these indicators cannot be achieved in a direct way. They're always the natural result of the interaction between a company and these different stakeholders, like employees, customer, community members, because these indicators are brought about by people. So if you don't treat people in a compassionate, considerate way, there is no way that you achieve these indicators, because they are the natural result of relationships. And we explain something that should be commonplace and common sense. What we explain generally is something that is quite simple, that is, the building brick of any business activity is the human being. This is the building the basic brick of any business activity. So if you don't consolidate and strengthen and brighten this relationship with different human beings, such as employees, customer, community members, suppliers, even people in the media, the government, all the different stakeholders, it's impossible for a company to succeed in the long term. Company might have short-term gains, but in the long term, you see that many companies go out of business, and some people will ask, what happened? Well, in many cases, what I found that in those cases, companies didn't care for their relationship. They were exclusively focused on this quantitative aspect, like a profit, market share. But they forgot that these are brought about by people. They didn't care for the most important resource. I don't like to use the word resource, but the most important factor in business, that is the human being. And many companies believe that paying a good salary to employees is enough. And this is not enough, because even when you pay a good salary, employees have other needs. They have need for recognition. They need to be appreciated. They need to be considered as a human being that can express their voice, their opinion when there is a problem or there is an important decision. They don't want to be taken for granted. So for this reason, many companies should be aware, and I mentioned this in the training, that there is a positive relationship between human beings, positive relationship with different stakeholders, and success in business, achieving these indicators.
So do you do any type of group team building trainings or anything like that to develop those relationships?
Depending on the type of the company. For small companies, it's much more explaining with example, but for big companies, could be some training in groups. Now, obviously, the most of the training that we're delivering is online. So teamwork is much more difficult when using video conference or Zoom, but we try to obviously make them reflect, because it's about reflection and self-awareness. Many of the insight that they obtain is through questions. For example, what are the main problems in this workplace? How can we improve our relationship with different colleagues or workmates? What are the main challenges that bring about a lot of stress and lowers productivity? This is what I call a question for self-reflection. And I mentioned some of them in my book in a chapter. And these are important because these create awareness. This is not following a technique A to B and B to C, like developing a strategy. This is much more what Stephen Covey mentioned, principles. And principles are very important values that tend to be solid over time, much more consolidated over time, and tend to be timeless. So you apply the principle today and you will apply the same principle 20 years later. So they tend to be what I call perennial. This means they don't expire. So by self-reflecting on these principles, companies and company members get much more aware that this is important. But also we show them example, because if not, it's all theoretical, and also we back this with research. But when possible, group work, yes. Brainstorming groups is important to reflect what is going currently in this business environment and how can we improve. So what we call appreciative inquiry. What are we doing well to? I ask them what are they doing well and how they can do better. So all workplaces and all work environments have a potential for improvement, but the most important difficulty is rigidity. In many cases, companies are accustomed to doing things in a certain way. Fear regarding change, resistance to change, but self-awareness creates much more open-mindedness regarding these principles. Principles are fundamental and very actionable. They're not theoretical at all.
I love that. Principles are fundamentals. Many people don't think like that. So a lot of the people watching this and listening to this, they have their own businesses and they're building teams. Some of them are growing their companies. Some of them are, small shop, maybe 1, 2, or 3 employees, if that, or people even starting out. So what kind of advice do you give to those people when looking for the right people to bring onto their team, so we don't have the negativity being spread out through the company? I'm a big believer of taking your time to hire,
yes,
and then don't waste any time to fire. So if you identify a cancer inside the company, just cut it, because that's going to spread like a virus. So just cut it and get rid of it right away. This is one thing I say you can't be emotional of. Because the negativity will spread through the workplace or throughout your team like that. And if you're taking your time to hire people, that means you're doing your research, you're really taking your time, and you make sure that you really talk to that person and you guys have the same values, the same culture, the same goals. And if you do that and you take your time when you bring them on board, you shouldn't have any issues. But sometimes it's out of your control. One of your employees hires somebody else and it's completely out of your control, and it's up to you to catch that right away and get rid of it so it doesn't bring the company down in a negative way. Because like you said, you don't want teams that feel like they're fearful if they're losing their jobs or making mistakes or anything like that. People shouldn't be afraid of making mistakes, right?
I agree. And you know what? You're right. So hiring the right people is important, and taking time for the hiring process. But also, when you're hiring people, a good piece of advice will be for entrepreneurs to take into account if there is a match between the company's values and the employees' values. And how you can know employees' values? Values is the belief of what is important for one person, or what they believe what is important for an organization in the case of companies. So you can ask them, what is important for you in life? So this is a very important question in a job interview that many interviewers do not ask. What is important for you in life? What brings some meaning to your life? What is meaningful in your life? And this is important. There will be in some cases an overlap between the company's values and the employees' values. This is a good situation because if there is a partial or total overlap, this employee has a lot of potential when working for this company. But also, the employee should be comfortable with the company mission too. What is the mission? Is the main purpose of this company, why we are here in this market. But also, is the employee feeling that they can contribute to the mission? Is their contribution aligned with their strengths and weaknesses? So I will ask different questions to see. First off, the values. Secondly, they resonate with the mission, the purpose, the company's purpose. But also, if their strengths, I will assess with employees, also conversing with employees, if their strengths are of value to this mission. For example, if they're good at, let's say, I'm a technological company, and also I'm developing software, and the employee is very passionate regarding this topic and have a lot of training, a lot of experience. Well, there is an interesting match between the experience, the passion, and the company's mission and the company's product. Well, this could be, but in some cases, many companies try to hire people that they know or they like or they feel well or they were recommended by another company, and they don't look at the attitude. Attitude is very important, and also as important as the aptitude. So if they have a skill, it's very important. Are these skills aligned with this mission? If they have good attitude, this means that are these values driving their lives similar or overlapping the company's values? This will be question that I will ask every employee to save time for our company and save time for the employee. Because if the employees is not aligned with our company, well, you're wasting their time, and also then we have to hire another employee. So this is to summarize what I wanted to say.
Wow, that's a very good point, man. I love that you're bringing that up. So once you go in there, and you know present all these ideas to the company, do you ever get any pushback whatsoever?
Yes. You know what? Many people believe that compassion, support, care, they are soft concepts. This means no, business is no, it's business is about beating competitor. Business is about like for example, poaching other companies' talent. Well, this is a bit a survival-based approach on business. It's not based on relationship. It's not based on. I have some companies that are very resistant to change, and obviously they don't take on any additional advice that can improve their business activity, even showing the latest research on this topic. But in general, I would say, with few exceptions, I feel that companies are very open-minded because they know that the business environment there is like a very important set of rivals that are always uh, around the company. And if the company doesn't try to improve their way of developing business, which include going beyond profits, well, other companies will act accordingly. So other companies will become more conscious. Other companies know that being conscious is not only looking nice, but it's also companies that are conscious or they have a conscious approach on business tend to attract, according to research, much more talented people. They have much more meaningful mission, which also make employees feel much more satisfied, which make them contribute much more effectively. But also customers, there is a new generation of customers, for example, millennial generation Z, that obviously they're more attracted to companies that are consciously oriented. This means that they try to care for the planet, they try to care for people. They don't like companies that are exploiting employees or exploiting children or deceiving customers. So you have also new generation that are coming out that are the future, that obviously they are more prone to, if they have the similar options, they will look for the company that is more conscious. So there are lots of advantages, but obviously there are some companies that are resistant. Luckily, they're the minority of them.
That is true. The younger generations, they care more about values than the previous generations. And I think that's a good thing, because that's going to change. Yeah, it's going to change, company culture in the future. And I think, as somebody who's done it all, man, I worked for other people. I worked for myself. Obviously, I love work, I love doing my own thing now, but trust me, I put in my time and I had my share of shitty bosses and jobs, when I was a kid and all that. And it's not fun, working for somebody that doesn't care about you, or that they have that style of, like you said, no compassion. You can drive your team and motivate your team without any necessity of driving fear through them. It's not necessary. And I wish, some more people will get that through your head. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because you're helping, spreading that message out there, man. And I love it. I really do.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we're out of time, but I want to thank you so much for coming on, Bruno. I really appreciate it, man. Anybody who's listening, where can they get your book, The Art of Compassionate Business?
The book can be found everywhere, because it's on bookshops, online, offline, can be found on the internet, any bookshop, for example, Amazon or any other, Barnes & Noble, and can be found also offline in any bookshop.
And also, I'm going to have all the links down in the description below. If they want to hire you to come in their companies and, restructure the whole thing and train their whole team, they can reach you out as well. So make sure to check out the links in the description below. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you listen to the podcast, make sure you subscribe. Bruno, again, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.